Hey everyone, Dan here. We are about a half hour before market close on Friday, May 28th. We're going to do that Friday thing of taking a look at AMC, which we've been doing every Friday for quite some time. And as a bonus today, we're going to look at what I'm considering calling the squeeze father, GameStop. We will do that after we cover AMC. So let's first take a look at sort of the squeeze data on AMC. Let's start over here. So basically, one of the bigger points that I see is a couple of things. So one, this, 21% shares shorted isn't like the highest thing that we've ever seen, of course, but it is still historically a very significantly high percentage of shorts. And, there was also this previous change to the positive from the previous month. But to me, the craziest thing is this dollar volume sold short continues to go up. Now, part of that's because the price is rising. But if you look right now at the dollar volume sold short, it's over $1.2 billion that's tied up in shorting AMC right now, which is just an insane amount of money. So that's one thing to consider. If we come down here, we see just a bunch of huge bumps up with some very small pullbacks, few and far between, and tiny compared to how big the bumps up are. But also, if you see the dollar volume sold short, by far the highest that it's been in the history of this chart. So crazy amount of money at stake right now, which you never know sort of like what that will play or what sort of role that will play as hedge funds or folks decide whether or not it's worth continuing to short. The short volume ratio is definitely keeping pace, around this 30 mark, and certainly not slowing down even when the volume has a huge spike. The short volume is spiking along with it. So just nutty numbers in terms of what's going on with AMC. The biggest sort of like moment of pause that I have when looking at the data on AMC short interest is the fee. So, I would want this fee to be a lot higher to really kick off just an incredible trigger of a short squeeze. So 7.7%, like single digits, when all is said and done, isn't that heavy of a fee. I like to look for things to at least get into 30s or 40s as a percentage. And, the really golden sweet spot for me has been over 100% fee, has been sort of like the most positive in terms of short squeeze potential. So what I'd really like to see is something like we saw here, which is a huge rise in the fee coming up maybe next week. And that, to me, if short sellers are incurring a huge fee, plus the price is stabilizing or even having some green days, that would put a lot of pressure on them because they're losing money when the price is just sort of moving sideways, or when it's increasing, and they're also losing money to just continue to incur the fee for those borrowed shares. So I would keep an eye on that, but that's really what I'm going to want to see tick up in order to make a big push. Or an additional big push. I know that it's been a really good week. Just double checking here, this site has a little over 22% of the short float, so very similar to what we saw. And on Yahoo, shares short ratio, and percentage of float, everything basically in line. So that seems like a pretty accurate number. So to me, again, the two big things are this dollar volume is so high, and the fee is still so low. So if we can get those things moving up in conjunction with each other, then I think there's really the possibility for some additional magic to happen. Would make this move right here look really minimal if that sort of comes together and kicks off, in my opinion. So, looking at this is the 5-day charts. There's no points. I know a lot of times you look at the the micro and the macro, there's no point in looking at this 3-month, 2-hour chart. I mean, what are you going to do with this? The price is so far away from, any of this previous price activity in the teens, and even in the single digits. It's just not going to play a role right now. So 5-day, I think, is where we want to be looking. And a couple of things that seem, pretty apparent to me in terms of just like supply and demand zones, or support and resistance zones. This is a really strong one, in my opinion. This 25-23, could offer a really good dip buying opportunity, depending on how the price reacts when it gets there, and it's right about there right now. And you saw it bounced off of here several times today. It was holding support there at the end of day and after hours yesterday, and during sort of the afternoon yesterday also had a big jump there, and then was able to hold support when it retested it. So that would be a big one in my opinion. Beyond that, these couple of zones, this is where it gets to be not a ton to sort of build off of on the downside, because this was such an aggressive move upward. But those should offer some additional bounce zones if needed. The mid to low 23s and the high 21s, I would look for a bounce zone there if it drops below this 25-23 and can't return. On the upside, there's going to be some stickiness right around here with all of this previous like jumping off point, resistance here, support here, resistance here. And so, getting over that 28-28 and establishing that as support would be potentially a big boost to the upside. If you're looking for more near-term upper targets, the high 31s would be an obvious spots. And then we're going to want to see, what it can do at this like high 35s area to avoid like catastrophically double topping out at this 36.72. It could certainly top out there again and retest it a couple of times, but we wouldn't want to see it come up, hit a double top, and then have a real drastic fall. We may want to, let me pop these off the screen for now. There's a little bit of like a flag pattern coming in here as well that, we might as well like call out. Let me just stretch this a bit so it's more visible. So if we look at, the pressure on the downtrend here, there's clearly all of this that it's contending with, and then on the upside, and this is what's going to form the flag, obviously, right there. So it'll be interesting to see if it can hold this support line on the downside in the after hours. It'll be interesting to see. I know there's not much time since it's Friday, but in the after hours, it'll be interesting to see if it gets to this nexus point, if it does have a big push up, because this is looking, a bit like a potential bull flag, and so I'd keep an eye out for that as well as we get through market close today. On the indicators side of things, the EMA, it's under the EMA at the moment. The VWAP, it's turned to the downside, so it has some resistance up there as well. The VWAP will probably offer some resistance as it gets to it. By that point, it might be closer to that $28 zone that we were talking about. On the RSI side of things, definitely on the lower side, which, as you would imagine, with the sell-off that happened after open today. So definitely opportunity for a bunch of buying pressure to come in due to that. And then the MACD is nicely in the negative, so if we can get a bullish crossover here, that could give a lot of running room to get itself into the positive and sort of bump the MACD line over this 1.04 area to sort of establish a higher high on the MACD. So that's what the chart looks like to me. But again, what I'm mostly interested in is the chart only in the sense of like, is it able to hold these price zones? Like especially, this one that we're talking about here, and as it comes up, right about here. If it can hold those price zones, or even have some positive days, then I think looking for the fee to jump up is the big thing for me, and looking for that dollar volume to sustain a very high level. I just think even as much as hedge funds or pro traders think that they can take emotion out of it, that is an incredible amount of money, no matter who you are, and I would sort of like push back against that sort of knee-jerk notion that the emotions of $1.2 billion couldn't play a factor in the various holders that accumulate that dollar volume to react. All right, let's flip things to GameStop. And on GameStop, again, the 3-month here makes a little bit more sense because we had this huge run up previously. And interestingly enough, you see the topping out in this area here, which we had called out before because of all this sort of messy price action that has occurred. But let's first take a look at like any potential short squeeze things going on with GameStop. My computer fan's kicking in here and it's slowing down, so let's see if it's going to let me click around at all. Alright, so GameStop. Go there, and we'll be getting a bunch of ads along the way. What in the world is this? Sorry, folks. This is what happens when you do one take, maybe, for your videos. Okay, GameStop Corp. There we go. All right, thanks for holding on with me. Let's get to the short interest, and let's take a look. So, dollar volume on this puppy, almost $2 billion. You see back here, it was over $4 billion. So, I mean, the price has been such a rocket ship that's definitely driving a bunch of that. But also, it's right about the same short percentage of the float as we saw on AMC. So, sort of following suit there. Slight increase from the previous month. If we scroll down, some huge decreases in positions here as things were just getting out of control. But they're building positions back in and holding them for very short periods of time as this continues to sort of swing wildly and be a battlefield, that's for sure. In terms of the day-to-day, let's see if we can get this working. I'll load this one up as well while we're waiting. All right, so here we're going to scroll down a bit, but on the day-to-day, the short volume ratio still keeping track, not in the 30s like we saw with AMC, but in the low to mid 20s, holding very steady, so no real backing off there, even on the days, like I said, when the volume jumps up quite a bit, this is 3 and 4 times the previous days or more even, and it's still keeping pace. So the shorts are still very, very interested in coming into GameStop. In terms of the fee, even lower, it's almost non-existent. So it's pretty cheap for the hedge funds or whomever to borrow the shares to sell short. So if that were to ever jump up like we saw here, these are great fees, to be looking for. Like I said before, over 30, I start to get interested. Over 100 really, really makes me interested. So it'll be like a factor of, keeping the pressure on in order to sort of have shorts still be losing money, not necessarily on the fee, but on the fact that they can't drive the price down enough to make it worthwhile. All right, short float still looks like it's about in line, so that's where I see things with the short data on GameStop. Now let's take a look at the chart. Like I had said, it seems pretty apparent to me that there's a very obvious battleground zone here at 264. I think that will continue to be the case. I would be looking for it to hit a really strong support area here pretty soon if it needs it, which would be right around here. All this previous support and resistance, a bunch of resistance, previous support here. And so, that 217 could be a potential sort of like dip buy if folks are looking to average down or just come back in at a place that makes sense. That could give you a bounce, but definitely see what the price is doing when it gets there if you want to react to it. And this should be another really strong zone if it needs it. Also the 188, I would look at that for potential similar type of activity. In a weird way, I think this is the case, if I'm spotting it correctly. This might still kind of be in a channel here, the top is so far away, so I'm sure some of it gets lopped off. But it would sort of be interesting to see if it comes about mid-range here and then comes back up to test the top of the channel, if it can then develop itself within this channel. This would be sort of like in its nascent form, and it's overly formed here on the bottom and not enough on the top. So seeing another stretch toward the top, and if it bounces off there, that would sort of go a long way to confirming that this channel is sort of potentially legitimate, and you could ride that for as long as it sustains. So that's where I see things on the macro side. Let's just do it this way. On the indicator side, for a longer term situation with GameStop, we're definitely below mid-range on the RSI with the sort of sell-off today, and could bring some buying pressure into the picture on the MACD. Definitely a sharp downturn here, so you want to see the sort of the bearish momentum die down here a bit and flatten out, and then see if it can give another bull run. Not that you want the price to drop in order to get the MACD into the negative, but if it did have, sort of a situation in underneath the baseline, that would give it a ton more run room to the upside. That said, the MACD has the opportunity to get so crazy high in the 30s here that it's at about 20% of that right now. So it definitely still by GameStop standards, not by really any other stock standards, does have room to run. On the 5 days, we're looking more for like what's happening short term. I would have, there was definitely stickiness here. I would have wished that it would have held, like more truly held and bounced there. But, just because you're hoping doesn't mean anything. But that 232 zone, so that's going to be a bit of a resistance zone for now. But if it can hop back over it and get support on that side again, that's what I'd be looking for. And then, I'd look for it to be here in the 240s would be my next area of interest, and then mid 240s. And, we can plot out a couple above that if it's useful for anyone to have in view. All right, so these are the ones that I would look for in order to, look for price targets to the upside, areas of interest. To the downside, looking for areas of support, this would be my first immediate one. Like if it can hop back over this 224, basically get support at 225 now, it could certainly make a run at that and try. If not, I would definitely look for some help in this area. There's going to be a bunch of help in these areas, actually, like a bunch of tight help. Like I know previously we had what I was calling this entire like stack of support prices underneath GameStop, and so you had like many areas of warning if there was like a huge sell-off going to come, because there were so many support areas that the price would have to break through. So you're definitely in that same situation now. There's this sort of like entire bed of support that if there was a huge drop coming to push it underneath 200, say, then you'd see it falling through all these pretty quickly and not holding a lot, and that might give you the sense that, okay, something bigger is happening here, and maybe we're going to retrace back down into the mid or high 100s and sort of like look for a floor from which to build off again. But that's what I'd be looking for on that side of things. On the indicators, looking at the RSI, we're definitely in oversold territory, so this could start to bring pretty solid buying pressure into the market, and so I'd be looking for that the coming days. And then, we are on the negative side on the MACD here. It'd be nice if it sort of truncated here and started to push up again. We had a crossover, a bullish crossover, because that would mean that this selling pressure that came in, this bearish momentum, would have been consistently dying down. So it sort of peaked out here, and then it like truncated itself here, and then maybe it will sort of start to put some dying pressure on the bearish momentum, sort of kill that off for the time being, and be able to push up into over the baseline and turn bullish. All right, well, I hope everyone had a good trading week this week. It was an exciting one, and a lot of sort of, I guess, things kind of picked back up, and a reemergence of some things that we were kind of excited about earlier in the year. So it'll be interesting to see how those play out next week and beyond. But enjoy your long weekend, and I will see you in the next video.